Okay, moved outside for the wet saw. Show you how we're going to make one of these cuts. I've transferred my arc line for my toilet flange to the edge of my tile. Simply going to put it on the tile saw, cut as much of it out as I have to with the saw. It's not that big of an angle. I'm probably going to be able to make the whole cut with my wet saw. Now you can see that I've made my cut. It's kind of rough looking. When we go back inside, I'll clean that up with a pair of nibblers, which are nothing but a little pair of pliers that cut the edge of the tile. I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of my cuts and we'll go. Okay, now that we've come back inside, we've cut our arc for our toilet flange here. Lay the tile down, check it. It needs to be trimmed up and cleaned up. The edges are pretty jagged from the saw. I use a pair of these. They're called nibblers. You can pick them up at any Home Depot, Lowe's, Tile Center, just a pair of cutters. You want to use them to just clean up the edges of the cut. We're not necessarily concerned with how it looks. This is all going to be under the toilet, but you just want to make sure that it has a nice fit around the flange and that's not too close to the flange. So we just clean up those edges a little bit there, check it again, and the tile fits. So we'll just mortar those tiles in. Got a couple of more here. I've got to cut my water line. Okay, as you can see, we've got all of our tile installed. We're nice and tight against the wall. I'll show you this here. We installed a marble threshold against the edge of the tile. And when we're all finished, we'll cut our piece of carpet down into that. Got everything ready to grout. All our cuts are finally done. Give you an idea of time. Those were some tricky cuts there in the corner. Done a few other things. Back here behind the toilet, I've gone ahead and already put up our new baseboard trim, because it's much easier to put that in before the toilet is in than it is to do after the toilet. We went ahead and put a new shut-off valve and new hose to the toilet from our water line. The other thing we did at certain places, I don't know if you can see it in the video here, but we caulked the joint between the edge of the tile and the edge of our threshold. We also caulked over here between the tile and our shower base. Two reasons for that. Because they're different surfaces, the grout would crack over time in those joints. Plus, if you ever needed to remove the shower for some reason, all you have to do is cut that caulk joint loose. It's a lot easier to get that shower out. A couple other things we have to do here to get ready to install our toilet. In this case, we're installing a new toilet. However, you can simply just reinstall the toilet that you took out. Because we've raised the floor a good ½ an inch, I went and bought a closet flange extension kit. You can pick these up anywhere, Lowe's, Home Depot, probably Ace Hardware. Not exactly sure which size we're going to need here. They usually give you 2 different sizes. We've already got our closet bolts in the original flange. Now I'm going to sit these on here and just see what we've got. That one's too big. I think this one will probably end up working perfectly. You want the flange to be flush with or slightly above the finished floor. And as it is right now, we are just slightly above the finished floor. We'll run a few screws in there, and then we'll be ready to install our toilet. After that, the next step will be to grout. Now we're ready to start grouting. We've mixed up the grout. Just simply follow the manufacturer's instructions for mixing it. Shake the bag before you pour out of it. It's best to use a whole bag, but sometimes that's so much more grout than you need that it's just such a waste and too much to work with. But shake the bag because the color in the grout tends to sink to the bottom. So give it a good shake before you start mixing it. Again, follow the manufacturer's instructions. Tools I'll need for this is a simple grout float. And then I use this, which is a margin float, just a smaller one to get into those tight spots and corners. I simply just dump some grout onto the floor. With your grout float, just start working it into your joints. You want to cover your joints. And then you want to run your grout float across the joints at as much of an angle as you possibly can to clear as much of the grout off of the tile as possible. Remember, whatever you don't get off with the grout float, you'll eventually have to get off with a sponge. After you do a certain amount of the floor, small area, what I like to do is take my bucket of warm water with sponges and give the tiles a wipe down one time, just so the film of grout on the tile doesn't start to get too hard on me. We're going to go ahead now and just grout up this floor. Get it into your joints and into the corners real good. You don't have to worry about against the wall too much, because our baseboard trim is going to cover that anyway. But pack it down into your joints real nice. And again, scrape the tile off as best as you can with the grout float. The more you get up now, the less you have to take up later.